Hi team, welcome to the Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast. My name is James McFetrich and this is an ongoing toolkit for all healthcare staff. Whether you are a porter or a paediatrician, a domestic or a driver, clinical or non-clinical, just starting or just finishing your work in healthcare, this podcast aims to give you some useful thoughts about working in this amazing business to help get you through your day. Today I thought I'd start with a bit of an introduction to the podcast and myself, and obviously explain also why it's called Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes. A little bit about myself. I have had 25 years, goodness me, experience in healthcare in the NHS in the United Kingdom. And I've worked in various different roles and jobs during that time. Counting up, I've had experience in 11 different hospitals, 21 different jobs. That's all part of the training. And then I ended up as a consultant in emergency medicine in the northeast of England, and I was working in that role for 14 years. And during that time, some managerial experience. I was associate head of service for 4 years, but my predominant interest and time outside of clinical work was in education, both undergraduate and postgraduate education. And I think during that time, I saw a lot of people in the health service, a lot of people with different roles. And what I really enjoyed was seeing them grow and develop, but also realised there's a lot of things due to the nature of education where we're quite stifled by the boxes that need to be ticked, by the specific knowledge and skills that need to be acquired and learnt. And what I really wanted to do, and hopefully will do with this podcast, is across the board for whoever you are, wherever you work in a health service, specifically thinking about the NHS, that I will be able to give you some advice and thoughts that I've gleaned myself, but also through interacting with so many different people, things that I think are really important to be able to work comfortably in healthcare. Because let's face it, it's not an easy job. It can be quite stressful, clearly, with the things that we come across each day. And I've got a whole list of topics so far that I think are important and interesting for you, and certainly to enhance your work in healthcare. I'm hoping all these episodes are going to be 10 to 15 minutes long, something that you can listen to as part of your commute or during a break in your working day. And I'll also make sure that there's something for you to do, to think about during each episode that I'll explain in the show notes afterwards, something for you to think a bit more about if there's something that has got your interest. So why kindness, curiosity and comfortable shoes? Well, this all started with a teaching session a few years ago. This was in June, and it was just before some medical students who were final year medical students. It was the last week of their time as medical students. They knew they'd passed the exams. This was very much an apprenticeship role they had in the emergency department. Then they'd have a month off before starting work in August. And I was asked the inevitable question, what do you think is the most useful thing that we should know for when we start work? And I know I've had lots of similar conversations over the years, and I had them myself, thinking back to when I started in different roles and when I started in as a house officer way back in 1997. And I know that what a lot of people are concerned about is, what do I do how do I manage someone when this happens on the ward? And I could see that's very much what these students wanted. But I've realized over time that those kind of things, yeah, it's scary when you first come across someone who's really sick. It's really frightening when you're the only person there in front of someone who's clearly very unwell. But you can learn how to manage that, and there are always other people around. But the thing that always comes back to me is how to manage well in a healthcare environment is to think back to those core values of why we end up in a healthcare setting. And it's usually kindness. We want to be kind to people. We want to help people. How many people, if you think back to your job interviews where someone has asked what suits you to this job, and it will often come back to, well, yeah, I like helping people. I want to give something back. But that all really comes back to kindness. We want to be kind to people. And it's really easy to forget that in the stress of a job when you've got loads of things on your list of things to do for that working day. And kindness really is at the core of what we deliver in healthcare. Whatever aspect of healthcare you work in, we need to remember that core nugget of kindness. So I said the first thing is just make sure you're kind to people. And the second thing that certainly inspires me still, even though I have less of a clinical role now, but that curiosity about what is going on. However busy you are, however stressed you are, if you've got an issue, a situation in front of you, to think, why is this happening? Why this? Inspire that nugget in your head to think, why, what is going on here? I want to find out more. And whatever your role, again, doesn't matter what your role is in the hospital. You may not have a clinical contact with patients, but we're still interested in what is going on. What happens to that person who comes to healthcare environment with a particular problem, whether that's urgently or non-urgently. We're curious about what's going on. And that's something I'm going to explore in the episode when I come on to curiosity a bit more. So that's the second thing I said to these students. I said, yeah, you need to be kind, but absolutely you need to be curious about what's going on. And then I thought, well, all things, good things come in threes. It's nice to have a third aspect to this. And it probably ought to start with a K sound, knowing that I've got kindness and curiosity. And I thought around, and one of those things that we easily forget when we are in that challenging environment is we forget about ourselves. And one way we can look after ourselves is by having comfortable shoes. Most people in healthcare are on their feet all day, 8, 10, 12-hour shifts, often longer than that. And so we need to look after ourselves. And the easiest way of doing that is having a pair of comfortable shoes. So in that episode, I'm going to explore a bit more about how we can look after ourselves in simple, easy terms, like investing in a good pair of shoes. So those were the three things that I said to the students: kindness, curiosity, and comfortable shoes. And if you remember those three things, everything else will fall into place. And they thanked me for their time. And one of them did get in touch with me a couple of months later just to thank me for those words that weren't all clinical and this is how you treat this specific problem, or this is how you manage this particular aspect on the infernal IT system. So I've often come back to those three aspects and thought it'd be interesting to pull together a podcast based on those three principles, but also other aspects that would form a toolkit, if you like, to help anyone who works in healthcare, and covers some of those things that we're perhaps aware of but aren't talked about quite so much, and do a bit of a deeper dive into those things that may just enhance your work in healthcare and that I think are important and interesting. I'm so excited to be doing this. I've been thinking about it on and off for the last 18 months, 2 years, and things have finally come together that I can put this out there. So I'm really looking forward to exploring all this, doing a bit of research about some of these keywords, and pulling these podcasts together. So I hope you are happy to join me on this, and we'll be looking forward to each weekly podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. be really grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe. And most importantly, if you found this helpful, please tell your colleagues about this podcast. Please take care of yourselves out there. You are doing a great job. And remember, be kind, be curious, and don't forget your comfortable shoes. The Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast is a JMAC Education production.